And we are live on the Gamification Revolution. I'm your host, Gabe Zickerman. Welcome, everybody. It is a beautiful, now starting to feel like fall day in New York City, and I'm so very excited to be with you today, and I'm glad that all of you are joining us. If you're joining us live, welcome back. Be sure to log in. You'll need to sign in with one of your Twitter or Facebook credentials, and then once you've signed in, you have this magical power, which is you can ask us questions. And you can do that by clicking one of the buttons that are located somewhere around the screen. And I'll even bring you on camera if you have a camera and you're not going to be totally lunatic. Or actually, if you're even a little lunatic, I'll probably bring you on. You can ask us a question live. You can ask us a question in text, and me and my amazing guests will get to it. And for those of you that are joining us later in time lapse, time delay, either on webcast or podcast, thank you so much for being here. Of course, you'll have to follow up with us on Twitter to ask us any questions after today. And before we dig in, I just want to remind everybody that we've announced G Summit Global, which is this amazing event. I'm going to be traveling all around the world this fall and winter. I'm going to, I think, 12 different cities and possibly a couple more, bringing a live workshop to those places. It's a small group workshop, so you can get certified in gamified design, which is really cool, and apply that to your career and get started on it. And if you want to join me for that, I would love to see you. But whether you're in one of those cities or not, we've actually compiled a great list of speakers from the top thinkers, the biggest companies in the world, IBM, Microsoft, Air Canada, Delta Airlines, really interesting folks who've got a lot to say about employee engagement, customer loyalty. They've got all new content for you. You can sign up and join the video conference, the online event. You can watch it from anywhere in the world, and then we have Q&A with these speakers set up for your time zone. So that's a affordable way to get this brand new content and gamification. Join me live if you can. We'll have this online workshop. Everything's at gsummit.com that you'd ever want to know. And now let's kick off this week's edition of the Gamification Revolution with my guest, Mike Skocko. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hi, Gabe. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
So excited that you're here. Okay, so Mike, tell everybody the awesome thing that you do.
Well, it's not me. It's me and the students. We have built a free open source plugin for WordPress that allows teachers to gamify their classrooms. It's a simple, straightforward way to keep score, to package your curriculum using game mechanics, and then the kids can spend their loot buying things that they think are really cool, but it's just ways to motivate and engage the kids.
So what brought you, so this is so exciting, right? I mean, I talk to so many different teachers every single day about the subject of gamifying classrooms and parents about how to bring gamification to education. How did you end up putting this together, Mike? What prompted you to do this?
It came out of left field. I was getting my master's degree 2010, 2011, and I was focused on motivation and engagement. And the more I looked at the research and the deeper I dug, it became apparent that the only type of motivation that really matters is intrinsic motivation. And the month 9 at Full Sail was all about gaming and how to embed gaming in your classrooms. And it started out really slow and really boring. Then it jumped to GameStar Mechanic. And when you go behind the scenes in GameStar Mechanic, to be able to build games, you have to learn their version of what it takes to build a good game. All of the mechanics they were describing are exactly the same steps that a teacher takes. You scaffold the experience, you build up, you make each level a little more difficult. It was one of those moments where everything clicked, and that was a beautiful thing, because in this very expensive master's program, I knew that what was up next was 10 days of World of Warcraft, and I couldn't believe that I was going to have to, I had never played Warcraft, and of course, like every American, I have strong opinions about things I know absolutely nothing about. And I thought it would be a waste of time, but after I understood the mechanics of good game design, I wondered, what is it that makes it so popular and so engaging? And it's the same thing. You were told what to do, where to go, why it's important, and what to do when you're done. And it's this continual process of working is what it is. It's not really playing, but it's fun to do. And
so let me ask you this question, which is, do you think your experience would have been different if in that, as you were experiencing this, if you had a negative preconceived idea of games, and what I'm really getting at, Mike, and I think everybody's kind of interested in hearing, why do you think there's so much contention among educators about the use of games in the classroom? So I'm curious about both of those.
Well, I think the real problem comes when we think of games as something frivolous and a waste of time and something we do just to have fun, and education is serious. And what we're missing out on is the engagement question, and then using the data to inform your teaching, to help understand how kids, well, they connect far more deeply for whatever reason. And Jay McGonigal talks about this at length on how games seem to fill this void. We have a basic human need to be challenged and to be engaged in a meaningful manner that pushes us in ways that school quite often doesn't.
So do you, I mean, we can see in the photo, Mike, that you're not a millennial. And I don't mean that in any negative way, but you know, we're not looking at somebody who probably grew up playing video games from start to finish. What do you attribute though your openness as an educator? How are you different? Why are you the guy standing here going, this is amazing, making this change, and it's so difficult for other educators to get there?
It was a perfect storm. I told the kids, I timed my master's degree, a one-year program, and I told them I would incorporate any lesson I learned as that year went along. And I have what's called the zone of intrinsic motivation, where we take into account what the students want as well as what I want, and it's a Venn diagram, and what they're good at, and we try to bring those circles together. And gaming is part of their culture. And anytime you can take what they want to do and what they're good at and bring it into your zone, it's where those three overlap. That's where intrinsic motivation for anyone's particular subject matter kicks in. And when I had this moment where it seemed like games are structured exactly the same way curriculum is, I went straight back to the classroom and shared it with 240 students. I teach 6 classes, they're all packed, and pitched them, who wants to help me build this? And so we worked over the summer and built our first version that launched that next school year, right at the beginning of the year. And it was clumsy and primitive, and keeping score was manual. And the pain of the process and having the kids involved, it was so exciting. I mean, this is their summer vacation. I had 15 to 20 kids working on this, collaborating with me, trying to figure out how we could make this work. So it became a team.
So the kids actually helped you. They helped you design the actual game, which is kind of that's the game that's there at the MacLab website, right? That we put the URL down on the screen, or are we talking about something else?
Oh no, the original game that the kids were collaborators. Right now, what we have, I'm not a coder. I've got a fine art degree, and I was a graphic designer. I'm a visual artist. And I worked in Flash, so I understand ActionScript and object-oriented. Anyway, the kids are writing all the code. This is the high school kids are writing code that now teachers around the world are employing to deliver their curriculum. And to me, how authentic, much more authentic does it get than that?
Tell me about, so one of the interesting things about it, which I think, and I think everyone involved in education want to check it out, and the URL is up there on the screen, the maclab.guhsd.net /posts, and they can all kind of check it out. So one of the interesting things at the center of this experience is you designed a kind of questing system with the students, right? Where they have to sort of go through and discover new things and do new things. Can you talk about the quests and how you incorporated XP and other game mechanics into them?
Well, our current version, the quests have 4 stages: encounter, accept, complete, and master. So each one of these steps, as they encounter the quest, XP pops up in a little growl notification. Their progress bar reflects their new points, and in edu speak, you get the anticipatory set. You prime them, and at the beginning, these quests are all linear. They're following a straight line through the quest line. But later on, they may look at the anticipatory set and say, you know, I'm not interested in that. I want to try something different and move on to a different quest. There's a button there that when they click accept, more information appears on the page, more XP, and then what the task is, what the assignment is laid out. One new thing, the game mechanics that I'm using this year is I've introduced quest givers. So there are specialists, and I use student art always, and my kids do some really exceptional work. So there's one character, and she delivers the design lessons. And there's another one who is kind of I call him Reaper. He's the guy that keeps the kids in line, the 10% who are wandering off, not doing what they're supposed to do. And so all these different characters, all the research says too, that if you personalize the lessons with some kind of anthropomorphic character, that engagement rises and retention improves. And so all of this is based on research. And you just watch the kids have fun doing this.
I guess so. That brings up sort of two questions, right? The first one is, why do you think it's important that there are avatars and personalization? Like, why does that matter so much to kids?
Well, that was one of those lessons in that master's program where we're constantly looking at research, and part of it was delivering. It was a education media design master's degree. And so we were looking at how to deliver curriculum, and the research said over and over that putting, you know, some silly paperclip with eyeballs off in the corner absolutely positively raises the results, that there's something about that hits us on a.
What do you think it is? What do you think is that something?
I think
If you had
text
to
can be
hypothesize.
cold, and when there's eyeballs, when there's a character, you identify with it more on a personal level. And I've made these characters come to life. And if you're a writer, you know that when you invent characters and begin to write in their voice, they begin to speak. So each one of these quest givers has a different personality. And I mean, writing the quest is a blast. Um,
Do you think that so? But do you think so for kids? Because one thing that often comes up with adults is that things like avatars can actually be like interfere with the core experience because it's like another thing that you have to do before you can get into the thing that you're actually trying to do. Do you think that if adults, and I know this is not your area of expertise, but just based on what you've seen with kids, do you think if adults were retrained to think more playfully and more openly, then avatars might actually help facilitate the same kinds of things that you've seen in kids?
I think that's a great point. I'm not, the one thing I don't want to confuse the issue. There's nothing in the game that creates avatars for the kids. We're a visual arts class and multimedia, and so they're creating their own avatars. These quest givers are just, you know, they're visual. They're images that appear on the page along with text, videos, you know, PDFs, whatever media I'm embedding in there. And that's just the first thing they see. But yeah, what you said,
How
go ahead.
how concerned? It's because it's interesting because you definitely see that in kind of adult gamification design that avatars are often kind of a problem rather than a solution. How do you deal with in areas like this of self-expression, and what's your feeling about how these game mechanics affect, and how do you deal with when kids have a kind of, let's say they do something particularly awkward, or they do something that wouldn't be appropriate kind of in the class setting? Does introducing the game mechanics or a game environment make them more likely to express themselves in ways that might be inappropriate, or do you think that it's about the same as when you were doing it without the game?
You know, that's a great point, but because kids quite often will cross that line. And I remind them all the time, usually myself, but this time there's a character, there's a horse with wings that is their guide with our code of honor, with how we conduct ourselves, both online with netiquette and in the classroom with each other. So the idea of respect and understanding the limits of high school is embedded right into the game. That's one of the quests, and that's one of our code of honors, huge. And it's early on. it's stressed, and then it's a reminder all the way through. So I think if you don't bring that up and don't confront that openly, it will be a problem. But if you let the kids know, we're doing something so incredible in here, and we're going to have more fun than you're going to have at any other classroom, but we have to not cross certain lines.
Yeah, and in fact, Michael Finney, who's a regular watcher of the show, a participant here on Gamification Revolution, he kind of linked right here in the chat to your set of expectations, and they really are interesting. You say, I expect you to have fun while learning. I expect you to follow instructions. I expect you to earn an A. If that's too much to expect, please choose a different elective. You, Mike, not to point this out, but you don't sound like a softie to me.
Well, you have to see my rubric. Teachers have they use rubrics in order to establish grades, and rubrics are typically columns and rows with blocks of text. My rubric has 17 words, and it's effort-based because I teach the full range of kids, from the struggling, disconnected student, the English language learner, to the AP student who's going on to some fine university. It's not an even playing field, so no one's graded against anyone else. It's all, if you're giving your all, if you're trying your best, you're playing by the rules, you have an A, because long term, not short term, long term, you're going to find success in here. You're going to do things you never imagined possible. And research says that if you take money off the table in business, if you pay people enough that they have job satisfaction, and then, this is at a drive from, there's more prime research, but Dan Pink talking about introduce a level of autonomy, and after autonomy comes mastery as a natural a byproduct, but then you have to have a purpose larger than yourself. And our purpose, clearly stated from the onset, is we want to change education. We think education's broken, and it's cold and sterile and not as much fun as it should be, and not as engaging. So our purpose is to feed this fire, and the kids know other people are paying attention.
Is that purpose actually expressed to the kids, or do they view that as the purpose of what they're doing?
Oh yeah. When I used to track our visitors, we've had people from 9,000 cities visit a little high school class site from over 180 countries. We get email all the time from people around the world praising the kids' work and saying what a great teacher you must be. Really all I do is set the stage, get them started, provide enough resources for them to work independently, collaboratively, at their own pace, take the stress of grades off the table, and all I do after that is nudge, just here and there, and I don't do direct instruction because it's all online. So I'm free every period to wander that classroom and engage kids in small groups or individually. It's so much fun.
Is it interesting, because I've observed this at G Summit, which is the event that I mentioned earlier, and we're having another one in the fall and winter that you can find out about gsummit.com. We have an educator every G Summit, every live one, who comes and talks about what they do in the classroom. And one that we had early on, a guy named Anant Pai, who was doing really interesting things with games in his middle school class, in third and fourth graders. And one of the interesting things that he said that you said, I just want to pull these threads together, is that this game-centric mode of teaching frees you up to spend more time with the students. It was something that I sort of observed with him. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, when the information's online, you don't have, I was absent yesterday, what did we do? Because it's there. You're moving too fast. You have the Goldilocks classroom where the lesson's just right for a couple kids. It's too slow for, this one group, and you're leaving other kids behind because, for whatever reason, either they're slow or maybe, they're having personal problems. When everything's online, they can access the material at their own pace. They can return to it again and again. The only deadlines in our classroom are for projects, like next week is Banned Books Week, and we're making posters for the library to publish around the school to get the kids interested. So they had to research anyway, to make a long story short, everybody in there progressed at their own rate. Not everyone is going to hit the deadline, because some are slower or more methodical, but we scored a huge victory in that the kids we're going to print a whole bunch of great posters. And I was free, instead of delivering lessons and trying to get the kids to work, I was free all period long. This is what I did all day until I set up this computer, is I was jumping from kid to kid to kid to kid, helping them refine their designs. What if that were a little lower? What if that text was tracked out more? And just posing those questions and nudging their designs.
So a kind of related question to this, and Ivan's
Great.
got a question we're going to come back to in a second, but Nicola has one here for you right here, which is, she basically is asking, if everyone's having so much fun, are the kids who are struggling having more issues because it's chaotic? And I'm wondering if we can address that, but maybe take an even bigger view on this, Mike. But how does gamifying the classroom, certainly through your prism, how does that affect kind of order and structure in a classroom setting? If I walk into your classroom, is it a crazy cacophony of kids just like running around? What's it like, and what can teachers expect as they use your techniques to gamify?
Okay, when the bell rings to start the class, if you're not already logged in and working on your own, you're tardy. You owe me 30 minutes. So the class starts itself. I do nothing at the beginning because I've done all my teaching before school starts. And so they access the material and they pick up where they left off. So we're not all on the same page, but every kid is exactly where they need to be. It's asynchronous learning in a traditional classroom, and we're all there together. And so the kids that have moved out ahead become mentors, and it's, oh yeah, no, you need to hold down that key in order to make that work. And when kids start teaching kids, then learning is far more deep. And I particularly like having multi-level kids in the same room, my second, third, fourth year students in with the rookies. And sometimes the rookies become the teachers.
Controversial. That's a very controversial idea relative to the normal classroom.
Normal?
Well,
Yeah,
the classrooms I grew up in.
I understand. Normal is we're fighting a battle. We're guerrilla warfare with traditional education. I was a high school kid who cut school, came to school medicated. I could pass your tests. I wouldn't do your homework. So I got my degree, I got my high school diploma, and I got into college because I can ace any test. It was boring. And I think a lot of kids today feel the same way. And let's face it, teaching in silos isn't how the real world works. We need more cross pollination between subject matter. And that's why we've moved to a complete, we're only doing work for other clients, other teachers, ASB, the library like this. So kids have to research their other core classes. They have to tie that other learning into our classroom and make it more authentic. Now that hits common core. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And I know. So a couple of other things come up. I even asked this question before we didn't get to, but you mentioned fun a lot, and you sound like the kind of guy, despite your like very serious teacher rubric about I expect you to earn an A and I expect you to show up every day. We could be forgiven for being like, okay, Mike Skocko loves fun. So what is the taste for fun? Why is fun actually important?
Oh my goodness. We all viscerally, we know if we're not having fun, what are you doing? And Carson, what's that guy's name? Carson says, you're going to be dead a really long time. You might as well take advantage of the life you have. And for me, I discovered the joy of learning after I was out of school. And I want to make kids understand that they can take control of their own learning, and that it can be fun, engaging, and provide a path to some economic security. Let's face it, if you're not a problem solver, if you're not a creative thinker, you're going to have some difficulty finding a good job and keeping it.
Can every student do that?
Some of the AP students, some of the most serious, I want to be valedictorian and why am I in your class because it's going to lower my GPA. Those kids have the hardest time, but it's so much fun. One of my best videographers and image editors is at Berkeley in his third year of his computer science degree. And he was a complete left brain thinker when he came in as a sophomore, and he became a much more well-developed individual. And now his left brain is augmented by all those creative tools he's learned. And I think it'll make him far more valuable as a computer scientist.
Well, and that actually was kind of my next question for you. So you're teaching arts. What do you think about, and not that I love the arts, huh? I think they're incredibly important. I think everyone should have an arts education. That's my bias. What do you think about applying your techniques, the gamification, the classroom ideas that you've had, the things that you've built with the students over the years and refined? What do you think about applying that to STEM, let's say science, technology, engineering, math?
I was invited to take part in a roundtable at the STEM conference in Sacramento coming up in another couple months. I think it makes complete sense. We're also, we have 2 classes where you can get credit for 9 different subjects, and one of them's computer science and one of them's game design. So we are a little more, not just the arts. We move in all different directions, and I think that it makes perfect sense to gamify a STEM classroom and cross-pollinate them.
What do you mean when you say cross-pollinate?
I mean science, technology, engineering, math. Let's put that science and math together. Let's find a project where the kids have to collaborate. They're not even in the same room together. We have all kinds of new tools that allow the kids to work, either synchronously from different locations or asynchronously. Let them learn what it's like to work with people in different disciplines. And let's face it, each one of these science kids has a math class too. But to only teach science in science and only teach math in math, I think a lot more teachers are starting to feel the value in bringing in, making their lessons more relevant, showing how it ties in to how math ties in. Math ties into design all the time.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk a lot about, I talked about in my book, Gamification Revolution, I talk about it a lot in gamification, is these 3 F's of how to make something engaging. So feedback, which is, a process of providing a sense of progress, friends, a social graph, and fun, and these 3 F's. And it sounds like you really, the way that you've designed the classroom, the way that you've gamified your classroom embodies a lot of those things. Can you talk about the need for students to feel a sense of progress as they move through class, compared to the way you think about it, the way you use progress or feedback compared to the way that maybe many of us were taught?
Well, I'm in an empty classroom here, but right next door is all the walls are covered with student art, and our website is got nothing but student art all through it. My avatar with the Terminator face on it is student art. They see excellence that was created by other students, and because I tell them there's no pressure to create anything like that until the spring, that you're going to have to learn these fundamentals. It's going to take time. I equate that to juggling, and juggle for them, and learning the basics and then moving into more complex skill sets takes time. And I want to take that pressure off of the incremental learning, the incremental measurements, which so often devastates certain students who don't learn as quick. The Khan Academy has great examples of asynchronous learning where someone is moving along at a much lower rate than others who are zooming up that chart, but at some point they get it and end up at that same upper quadrant at the end of the year. Well, in a normal classroom, that kid never got to that upper quadrant because they were left in the dust.
Right. So it's something about moving that feedback loop into a more into a box that's less demotivating and more motivating by the sound of it, right?
Right.
Um, and and I think your emphasis on asynchronous learning and that sense of progress gotten tremendously positive feedback in the chat, and so very exciting to have had you here. We're actually out of time. This thing always goes so fast. We could probably talk for the rest of the day, and I hope that we have a chance to have you back here or have you live at a G Summit event. Mike Skocko, thank you so much. Folks can follow Mike at the Mac Lab on Twitter, at the Mac Lab on Twitter, and it's a great place to find out all about the cool stuff that Mike is doing. Thanks for being with us, Mike.
Thank you very much. And if you go to the GUHSD site, it's not /post. That's how I used to run the class. It's just that straight GUHSD.net. And if you want a trial account and see what it looks like as from a student's point of view, I'll be happy to make one for you if you're an educator. And the rest of the information is there. Thank you so much, Gabe.
Oh my.
And thanks everyone.
That's such an amazing offer, everyone. Yeah, and thank you so much for being here, Mike. Thanks everyone for joining us. Be sure to be part of G Summit this fall and winter, gsummit.com. Join us again next week for the Gamification Revolution. We'll be here Thursday afternoon, 1 o'clock Eastern, with another great guest talking about engagement across a wide range of subjects. If you want to follow me and keep in touch, I'm at gzicherm, Gzicherm on Twitter. In the meantime, until we meet each other again, everyone, keep having fun. So long.